On this channel, I keep saying that I'm going to start recording things in a different format, but I don't have time because videos about this keep popping up, and I have a direct connection to this topic, so I really want to say some things. At this point, it is for the best if leftist and left wing people stop talking and trying to talk to Mercedes Chandler. Now, a number of you don't know who I am because I'm not on TikTok as much anymore. I'm very much on Threads. And honestly, like my content on my previous TikTok was not doing that well, so I kind of just left. I am very much a leftist. I have been a leftist for a very long time. You could have seen me at some point in 2014 protesting about Black Lives Matter. So I'm not new to this, I'm true to this. At the beginning of April, literally the first week of April, there was Candlegate that happened on Threads. For people who don't know what that is, literally go look up any video. In fact, you can look up a video on my old TikTok, and we'll get to why I have an old TikTok and this TikTok in a second. During this whole thing, Mercedes popped out and said that they want to talk to somebody about how they effed up during Candlegate, and I said, hey, I'll talk to you. I talked to Mercedes for 3.5 hours at the beginning of April. I think it was April 5th or April 7th. We talked, and at the end of the conversation, I told Mercedes, you have to do the work. And I'm going to challenge you, and I'm going to hold you accountable to this, that you have got to go further. If you ever want to see actual change anywhere with anything, and honestly, with what I feel like aligns with you as a person, you've got to go deeper. And obviously, you can't go deeper today. I don't expect your homework to be done by Friday, but I am going to hold you accountable to change whether you're online or not. And if you're the person who I think you are trying to be, I do think that the reparations is something that you need to get into.
I would love to not only work on reparations, work on running those reparations by you, but also just accountability partner.
Mercedes, bestie, this is me holding you accountable after watching you for a month do the most. And since then, I have seen the opposite of the work we talked about. Since then, it has become apparent to me that Mercedes just wants to get popular, get the AdSense from TikTok and the AdSense from wherever platform they are on, and they do not actually care about the issues. During our conversation, we explicitly talked about how Candlegate was not just about the candle, it was about the erasure of Black women's voices about a problem that affected Black people. And during that conversation, Mercedes said they understood. I specifically talked to Mercedes about the fact that there's no such thing as leftist infighting. So for people in my circle, we are constantly having to deal with being Black, being a woman, being working class, being queer, and then also being in this left space. And every single time we're like, okay, that was a little bit racist, everybody jumps on us. And we constantly get told we need to stop infighting. And we're like, okay, the infighting is not infighting, it's racism. There are leftists who understand and accept that there may be times that they messed up and they will get called in and called out and they will accept their L's. And there are people who don't want to do that. That's it. There's no leftist infighting. There's people who understand that they don't know everything. And there's people who don't know everything and also don't want to learn. That category is Mercedes.
I am not trained or educated, and I'm definitely not educated enough. I did not go to college. To be able to move them over into the leftist space.
Mercedes has two different personas. And if you go on Mercedes TikToks and Blue Skies and their other social medias, you can see on Blue Sky, Mercedes is a moderate against MAGA. On TikTok, they're a leftist. So they just go with whichever crowd they can go for. On YouTube now, they are an ex-conservative turned leftist through education. So maybe they're trying to do better on YouTube. I don't know. In our 3.5 hour conversation, Mercedes talked about GAG and they talked about how they were completely against everything that GAG did, but they had a social media account that was with GAG and they kept that account open for weeks after they decided they were going to leave the organization. And they kept getting money from this interaction and did not delete their social media, they effectively made everyone so mad that their social media got taken down. They never left. They just got taken down.
I got on a public Twitter spaces and I said something along the lines of, this is in front of a bunch of people, and I said, sorry, our values don't align. You guys are morally bankrupt or something. And then I left the org. But I built up my Instagram platform to 145,000 followers over there. And then I turned it into a Kamala Harris it edits page, thirst trap page. That was I just did that because I would, and like, just like stuff that was debunking General Trump or right wing rhetoric. They did mass report it and get it taken down, which was the goal in the first place. It was funny. There was a 24-hour period there where I thought about selling it because it was a huge platform. And then I stopped and I said to myself, no, that's unethical because they don't need this as a weapon. And that's when I turned it into the Kamala Harris thirst trap page. And they hated that and did mass report it. It was so bad that I didn't even make content for did not make content for that organization. Yeah, I didn't make content for them. Like I started out making 3 or 4 months of content. The rest of my time as a conservative, those last like 2 months, I just did conservative repost pages, and I named the page like Conservicon, because I couldn't even bear to post anything. I went so crazy that I started eating Canadian night crawlers.
In our conversation, I said, that's a little sus. That's a little weird. I genuinely think that I hear your story, and I know that a lot of people would be very weary of like how genuine and how sincere this is. I know that part of the story where I'm like, ooh, that was a little unfun. Is the part where you're like, yeah, for a few months I definitely didn't agree with them, but I kept posting. That's a little. So it's not like I didn't call it out when they said it, but there it is. I also want to say that I do feel like Mercedes is collecting conversations with different people, and it's disingenuous. I asked Mercedes before we had our conversation to prepare questions, so that way it's like a Q&A. I ask questions, you ask questions, that type of thing. Instead, I ended up doing a 3.5 hour leftism 101 and how not to be racist 101 class, and did I get compensated for any of that? No. Did Mercedes ever offer to compensate me for that? No. They told me thank you for being so nice and so caring, but that's it. Mercedes constantly talks about how people on the left don't want to have a conversation, but when we did have a conversation, they took that conversation, said thank you very much, and then a few weeks later, we're on threads and on social media talking about exactly the opposite of what we talked about. Previously, this 3.5 hour conversation was by link only because I was going to make a larger video. At some point, I will because I want to post a video on Blue Sky, TikTok, Threads, and on YouTube because the way that they get their audience and the way that they grift is they don't post the same thing on all their social medias. Me and Mercedes talked about doing reparations to the various communities that they affected. If you're the person who I think you are trying to be, I do think that the reparations is something that you need to get into.
Yeah, I would love to not only work on reparations, work on running those reparations by you, but also just accountability partner. And since then, I actually waited to talk to Mercedes because I was hoping during the month between when we had the conversation, when I posted it, that they would show and prove, and they would show any signs that this conversation affected them at all. And they messaged me one time, like a week later or a couple days later, about organizations. They told me thank you, and then proceeded to do, like, they were talking negative about Carmelo Anthony and using Carmelo Anthony's case as rage bait. And then after they rage bait everybody, they said that the left condones violence or some shit like that. It's not okay. Mercedes, you talked to me and you talked about how I was so nice and so kind, and I listened to everything and I helped you understand different topics. And then now you're on social media embarrassing the fuck out of me. I want people to come to your video. You have been the one who's had an honest conversation with me. You're the one who did the work in seeking me out very, like, out of the gracious of your heart, you didn't need to do that, and you did that regardless. You're the one who did the work for this conversation to happen in the first place. And I want people to see that. I do want people to see that. And I also think that a lot of the people who are on my platforms that might be in the position I am, where we're teetering on this left of center, like who knows what's going on, still in our transition of moving left, that people like you need to be highlighted. If everyone was like you, educating people like me, holy shit, the change would be enormous. Your patience, the way that you understand what I'm trying to say without demonizing me, you're coming at it from 100% good faith. And I've never seen that before. And I think that should be highlighted.
But we'll talk. We'll talk. We'll be in contact. I may have a little bit of good faith in you that you're gonna do some positive things with your passion and your actions with everything. So don't disappoint me. I'll fight you.
Stop, you're gonna make me cry. I don't cry over shit. What?
Don't disappoint me. I will fight you. Now, I'll be honest. I expected that. Because again, our conversation was based off of a disingenuous act in which you said that we were gonna have a conversation. Then you told me the day before, that I'm just leading the conversation, and that's not fair. That's not okay. Now, I have not talked to Mercedes since we had our conversation, but I did hop on a live one time with the people from the Left Wing Project that Mercedes screwed over, and I did hop on the live. One day after I hop on the live, suddenly my TikTok is hacked. Now, they have not done anything with my TikTok. They just hacked it. I just can't get into it. So it's a little suspicious. That's all I'm saying, is suspicious. For the record, my conversation with the Left Wing Project was literally just me saying, hey, I had this conversation. They haven't done anything that I've said. I talked about making reparations to the Black community and the Black women creators that they literally dissed on Threads and sent hate people to. Like, the guy on the Candlegate said that we were homophobic. And then Mercedes said, I'll have my following support you. And surely enough, they started coming on our threads and calling us homophobic. So reparations for that. Like, I don't know how you would do the reparations for that, but they said that they would help platform me. Zero conversations about that. Also, I said, hey, you need to start making content and videos about you being now pro-trans and also being trans, because you have anti-trans media out there. Haven't done that. They did a Q&A about being in gag and leaving, and then they talked about how mean leftists were for bringing that up. Well, leftists can't bring up anything else because you haven't posted anything else. They talked about how they volunteer with the homeless community, which I said, hey, that's great. However, you were homeless, so that's like an identity that's close to you. They've helped their trans neighbor with their breaks. And I was like, that's good, but that's also like, you're trans. So like, hey, it is what it is. Like, still an identity that's close to you. In addition to that, they said that they helped other creators in the Left Wing Project, which arguably they got rid of the whole Left Wing Project, so they didn't help them. And then they only advised them on how to do debate content and the, hey guys, so you think that you're da-da-da-da, that type of stuff. So was it helpful? No. And it also didn't address any of the systemic issues of why those content creators were getting less views than other content creators. All in all, stop talking to Mercedes. Just because Mercedes has a large platform doesn't mean that they're a good person. Just because they keep going and saying that leftists are mean doesn't mean that they're a good person. There's a guy who dresses up as a trans person every few weeks to bait leftists, and everybody just ignores him. Let's do that with Mercedes. Mercedes is a leftist. I forgot their pronouns, but now they have different pronouns. Mercedes is a leftist. They just have conservative ideas. If they keep lying and saying they're moderate, they're lying. If they want to go back to being more hateful and want to become a moderate, that's up to them. You can hate more people. You can be mad at the people that are trying to hold you accountable for as long as you want. That's totally fine with me. But stop playing both sides. Stop trying to just get money. It's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to any of the communities you represent or claim to represent or try to represent. and I'm tired of it. Please stop. Everybody, please stop talking to Mercedes.